Welcome to the Reckoning Brothers podcast. I'm Scott, and I'm here with my good buddy Mark. What's up, Mark?
And we're here with Josh, too.
Yes, he is here. He is listening. He is our producer,
He's in the bathroom with the lights off.
as he usually is. Mark, I have a question for you.
Yeah.
Who would you rather have sex with? Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez or Robbie Suave, but he's been dead for 5 minutes?
Robbie Suave is one handsome dude.
Mm-hmm. And smart and talented.
He really is. I didn't know that you knew who Robbie Suave was.
Dude, I'm a huge Robbie Suave fan.
I love Robbie Suave.
Love when he took over for Rising, and he's even got that Reason show that he hosts with that woman. I can't remember her name, but I like her too. Yeah.
I mean, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez is a smoke show. You just have to go ahead and admit it.
Yeah.
She's a snack.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
All right, no, understood. So the 5 minute dead thing doesn't bother you. So Robbie Suave it is. Got it. Mark, what do you want to talk about tonight, man?
Ideological purity. Rigidity. So it shouldn't go unnoticed on anybody that, Trump's coming, Cheeto's coming under a lot of criticism for his cabinet picks, etc. And a lot of the headlines, most of the narrative is they're billionaires, and these are the people that the regular people that the dumb Trump voters voted for when they really are a bunch of billionaires, and they're all rich people. There's a lot of diversity in it. And when we stop and think about it, you got Tulsi Gabbard, who is a Bernie bro and is not necessarily pro-Israel, who's going to be the incoming, she's confirmed, director of national intelligence, and the national security advisor is Michael Waltz, who's a hardline, hardcore, conservative, pro-Israel, and thinks Bernie bros are crazy. You've got Bobby Kennedy Jr., right?
Mm-hmm.
Who
lifelong Democrat, Bobby Kennedy Jr.
Correct, and the darling of the Marin County, California progressives and the Hollywood progressives for years, right? Because of the raw milk drinkers and the people that were skeptical of vaccines were, the people on where you live on the coastline, in California.
Well, don't forget the top earning African American, Elon Musk, and Indian American Vivek Ramaswamy. I mean, I know it's not a real official government position, but it's high profile Doge.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, they're as high profile as anybody else in the cabinets right now.
The diversity of opinion is crazy. You got everybody from Bernie bros, Bobby Kennedy progressives, hardcore conservatives, libertarian conservatives, right? And somebody
all over the map. Any thinking person can see, wow, this is diverse.
It reminds me of A Team of Rivals, which was Lincoln's cabinet, right? Right? Team of Rivals, Lincoln's cabinet.
I'm just trying to remember the Daniel Day-Lewis movie, and yes, I seem to remember that.
And the Doris Kearns Goodwin book, which was entitled Team of Rivals, because you had everybody from Vice President Andrew Johnson, who was a Southern Democrat, to Northern abolitionist Seward, Secretary of State.
Admirable, right? You would say this is admirable to have a diverse cabinet like Trump and
debating things from a wide point of and again, the narrative is they're all billionaires, they're all sycophants, they're all Trump bootlickers. All cabinet and sub-cabinet appointees are loyal to the commander-in-chief they serve, right?
He's also the president of the United States too, so there should be some amount of loyalty.
Work for a president of the United States, it literally says in your appointment, you serve at the pleasure of the president. That's what it says.
Is pleasure the word that they use?
It literally says serves at the pleasure of the president.
I wish it wasn't the word pleasure because it's a little too sexual for me, but still, point
Well, it
taken.
was the way
And
they
yes, it
talked.
should
You
be
know, it
that
was
way.
the way they talked back then. You remember how like the way people close. Like if you read letters from, the letters that Madison and Jefferson and
Yeah.
people from that era, the people that wrote
Dearest
the
Abigail, and all
well,
that.
I forever remained your obedient servant, Alexander Hamilton. Remember?
Yeah.
Remember that stuff, right?
Totally. I just saw the musical, by the way. I got to tell you, Mark. I know you're not big on musical. Just saw it a few weeks ago.
Yeah.
Fucking amazing.
You saw Hamilton the
Amazing.
musical.
Yeah, amazing. Amazing. Blew me
What
away.
did you like about it?
The songs were all fantastic. The acting was great. I loved, as anti woke a person as I am, I loved the black casting. I thought it made a great point. I thought it was very pro American because mostly of when the musical actually came out was pre the modern kind of woke bullshit. Every actor, even seen it in Los Angeles years later and not being the original cast, killed it. I thought Thomas Jefferson was the standout actor in performance in my eyes. And it was just, it was fun. It was so pro American. It was so inclusive. I
If
didn't
you
feel
say
the
it's good,
slightest bit of wokeness.
if you say it's good, I, the, you know, I'm an open-minded person. The last musical I saw that I liked was The Blues Brothers, and that's only because Cab Calloway was doing the music.
Yeah, I mean, Blues
Yeah.
Brothers is a fucking classic. But
Yeah.
anyways, I'm sorry, Mark. I got you a little bit off track. But
Well, no, I'm just
yeah,
gonna.
so the cabinet, the very, very, very diverse cabinet in the Republican
So yeah, and somebody,
president's cabinet.
yeah, well, a Democratic influencer said that I think I speak for all of us when I say fuck Joe Manchin because Joe Manchin, the senator from West Virginia, is retiring. He's a moderate Democrat, and he's retiring, and the left hates him. The Democratic Party hates him, um, and that was his response to a CNN headline that Joe Manchin is giving his farewell speech on the floor of the Senate, and the, their rigidity from the left and from the from the movers and shakers in the Democratic Party it constantly shoots themselves in the foot. Like
It, it's
Joe
insane.
Manchin, Joe Manchin would have beaten Donald Trump, right? Like a moderate Democrat would have beaten Donald Trump.
Well, Annie, and I talked to you a little bit before we started recording. I just made a quick list in my head of who I thought would beat him. Tulsi Gabbard, landslide victory.
Yeah,
Dean Phillips,
yeah.
maybe not a landslide victory, but a victory. Bernie, he might be too old. I don't know. Even like Marianne Williamson, I think could have won just because they seem like authentic, real people
But they,
compared to anyone that they would actually run.
but the movers and shakers in the party demand conformity, 100%. That not a smidgen of dissent is allowed, and
There
now
are
now they get to have fun with a cabinet that includes an anti-communist Cuban Secretary of State and a Samoan former Bernie Bros Director of National Intelligence.
that's
You
what you get,
you
bitch.
fucking morons.
I I think that the leaders of the DNC must be more concerned with keeping power over the Democratic Party than winning because they're not allowing any flexibility. They're not allowing an open primary. They're running somebody. They ran Kamala Harris, dude. They ran Kamala Harris.
When they
They,
thought Biden was going to be the nominee, they kicked Phillips, RFK, Dr. Cornell West. Who else?
well,
Kept them.
apparently, also, by the way, I know you're not a lefty. Apparently, Dr. Cornell West is one of the nicest, kindest human beings alive.
Yeah,
Heard that
well,
many
I've met
times.
him on several occasions, and
He's amazing.
My friend Robbie George knows him well, and they debate. And yeah, Dr. Cornell West, I don't agree with him on almost anything, but he is the kindest, dearest man you'd ever want to meet.
Oh, he
And
sounds
he's somebody
amazing.
you can vigorously debate with, like hotly debate with, and go out to dinner with and have fun. He doesn't like doesn't do the whole mindset like we so often see now of people that if you voted this way, or you support this person, or you've ever held any view that isn't somewhere to the left of center that you can't be friends with, or go out to dinner with, or have
And that's
things.
the most important thing. That's the most important virtue is that you don't take politics so seriously that it gets between your family and friends.
Friends and family.
Anyone that's on that team, hey, let's drink to Dr. Cornell West.
Dr. Cornel West, who, who, and I've seen him. Um, so when I was in college, Gus Hall, when I was growing up and when I was in college, Gus Hall ran for president on the Communist Party ticket every 4 years, at least four times.
Hmm.
And in 1984, I think it was, 84 or 88, Gus Hall ran with his running mate was Jarvis Tyner, who was a communist. Back in those days, communists could come to a university campus. You would debate hotly, right?
Hmm.
And everybody would go smoke weed and drink beer at the Rathskeller afterwards.
That's amazing.
There were no
That's
hard
amazing.
feelings. There were no hard feelings.
God,
Nobody was. I wasn't calling I wasn't calling. Nobody was calling Jarvis Tyner evil. I think that his ideology is evil, but I didn't call him evil, and he wasn't calling anybody else evil. And
Mark, what's the phrase? Dumb people discuss people. Kind of smart people discuss events, but really smart people discuss ideas. I'm probably butchering that somewhat. Have you heard that phrase before?
no, I haven't, but I love it.
Yeah, yeah. I think that's what you're kind of putting. I feel so bad for college kids nowadays. They don't have that atmosphere to where you could just be so far. Even when I was a kid, like that's part of the reason you and I became friends in the first place. I was kind of a young lefty. You were way more conservative than me, but there was no the thought of not being friends with somebody because of their political beliefs is gross to me now. Is gross to me then.
It didn't even enter our mind.
It didn't even enter our minds.
The notion of that literally never entered anybody's mind. Like if you told me,
it would be silly. You would seem like an idiot.
You told me 40 years ago that you knew somebody who didn't talk to you anymore, or come over to your house anymore, or you had a neighbor that didn't wave to you anymore because you had different political opinions, or you disagreed on a COVID vaccine, or you disagreed on wearing a mask outdoors, or you disagreed on that you disagreed that you didn't believe Russia stole the 2016 election. That whatever.
Yeah.
And we don't have. I would have said no.
You would be ostracized if you were that person that decided you weren't going to be friends for any of those reasons. You would be a pariah. You would just be a silly person.
You would just look at them and go, "What the fuck are you talking about?" Nobody does that. Like that's insane.
Mark, can I dial it back a little bit? Because sure. I just remembered I made a note when you brought this subject up to me earlier. There's something I've been thinking about. So the Democratic Party, part of the reason why they're so inflexible, I think, is because there's become risk averse. They can't do anything that's not in this little area. What I like to call the Ubisoftification of the Democratic Party. Josh, you know the video game company Ubisoft. You know the video game company Ubisoft. Ubisoft is a video game company. They make all these open world games, right? Assassin's Creed. They've made them for years. They're losing a lot of popularity and a lot of customers because they keep making the same game over and over and over again. They all look the same. Every time they put out a new Far Cry game, the new Assassin's Creed game, it's all the same game. It's all the same thing you have to do when you play it. And actual gamers are just sick of it, and they don't want to buy the product because it just looks like a lazy copy and paste. They're not trying anything new. They're not engaging with their customers. They're not even respecting their customers. I think the Democratic Party has a lot of that going on. What do you think, Mark? I know you're not a gamer, but
No, so yeah, I'm not a gamer. I love that analogy because you explained it so well to somebody who isn't a gamer. The
one of
same thing.
these days, Josh is going to force you to sit down and play a
No,
game with us.
no, the same thing over and over again. And a good example would be like for decades, um, and not just Republicans and not just conservatives and not just libertarians, but middle of the road Democrats have been saying for decades that there are many things you could do to get government spending under control. The government is very wasteful and very inefficient. And we
Hmm.
have the data. We've had data for decades about how many tens of billions, hundreds of billions of dollars.
And that was before COVID. Now there's
Correct.
even more waste.
Like we had, the Grace Commission in the 80s, um, identified tens and tens of billions of dollars that the government wastes money on. And I forget who it was. And it was a great analogy. It's like, if you went to a family and said, like, if you went to a family, like a lot of, with all the inflation that's happened in the last 4 years, every family in America, unless you were very well to do or rich, had to cut back, had to cut back on something. They had to cut their budgets somehow, some way, and they had to cut their budgets 2%, 5%, maybe more than that. If you go to any family and ask them, can you cut 2% from your family budget? Families can do it. But this, but if anyone asks the government to cut their budget by 2%, oh no, that can't be done. There's no
Yep.
way you can do that. People are going to die. There's going to be starving people in the street. Nobody's going to be able to afford avocado toast anymore. It's
What's was it Churchill that said the bureaucracy is expanding to meet the ever expanding needs of the bureaucracy?
Yeah,
Yeah.
bureaucracy perpetuates itself.
Yeah.
Somebody said something today about like some anonymous Republican aide to a Republican senator said, "Where of course it's an anonymous source, so it's either a made up source because I'm not sure I trust the reporter that reported it. It's either a made up source or it's a Republican staffer." And they said, "Well, there's no way Elon Musk and Vivek Ramaswamy, they're not going to be able to, they're not going to be able to cut government spending, but anywhere near what they say they're going to be able to cut from, and it's all a game, it's all posturing." And
Yeah, because
I,
they don't have better things to
I
do.
will, I will, I would bet everything I own that Republican staffer's wife or husband has a job at making six figures at the Department of Housing and Urban Development, or Department of
Hmm.
Transportation, or Department of Education, or the EPA. Something that came out today was huge. Like a week or so ago, they found out that only 5% of federal government workers are working 40 hours a week and coming to the office.
Did you
Five
say 5%?
5%. And then Elon Musk goes, and other people verify, like, if you take away maintenance and security guards, et cetera, it's 1%.
Oh
You got
man.
people working 20 hours a week, making somewhere between 70 and $160,000 a year, $150,000 a year. You know, and
People want to keep easy jobs.
yeah,
I wish I could remember who. Sometimes when you hear an interview with something or hear somebody talk, and you're like, "Oh my, that I was thinking that for years," and you just put the knots together for me. Wish I could remember who it was, but I was listening to an interview with a guy, and he basically made that point that the reason why we have so much wokeness, trans ideology, gender ideology right now is because people in those industries, GLAD, ACLU,
yeah,
maybe more race related, but Southern Poverty Law Center, they
yeah.
just want to keep their jobs. They
They have,
won the war.
they
They
have
want
to
to
keep
keep
it
their
going.
jobs. They
And
want
they're
to keep working. They
and
want to
that
keep their money.
yeah,
This is how they do it.
that's the extrajudicial bureaucracy, I call it.
Hmm.
Like they work hand in hand with the bureaucracy. They don't, they don't their paychecks don't come from the taxpayers, like, right.
But their taxpayers come from an ideology, and they come from people giving them money that they use for fucking tax write-offs or whatever. But
And you
they're the
mentioned
ones with their hands out.
and
Not too different from the government.
to stay to stay current because the Supreme Court's hearing the case on transgender procedures, drugs, cross-sex hormones, puberty
Ooh,
blockers
yeah, I saw that.
for
Ooh.
minor kids, right? Man, so I just want to say that I feel very vindicated when I opposed Supreme Court justices when certain Supreme Court justices when they were nominated. And I'm not a lawyer. I do consider myself somewhat of a constitutional scholar. I'm certainly not a lawyer, but you don't have to be a lawyer. So Justice Sotomayor compared compared puberty blockers with taking aspirin.
Jesus Christ.
Um,
That's an insane amount of ignorance.
she
Is it ignorance?
she literally said,
Can't be
"Well,
ignorance.
some people." She literally said, "Well, there's always a risk with any kind of medication, and not everybody can be taken even not everybody can take an aspirin without being harmed by it." Right? That's not a direct quote. I'm paraphrasing. And
Oh
then
God, Jesus Christ.
Justice Justice Ketanji Brown Jackson compared, and I hate the term trans or gender affirming care because it's not affirming gender, it's changing gender. It's so
It's not.
Orwellian, right? It's gender changing care. It's not gender affirming care. You're literally
It's
changing your gender, right?
Dude, I agree. We've talked about this before. And as soon as we
So,
started on this subject, which I am the one
and
that brought
Justice
up,
Jackson, who is black, compared it to Jim Crow laws that outlawed interracial marriage. And my mind is
it's
blown because
insane.
I don't know. You want to take a gigantic stinging shit on the memory of several of the people from the civil rights movement who were killed during the civil rights movement? Like you're going to compare? Well, first of all, um, you can't. Like, why would you compare?
Yeah, it's
All right.
Josh is giving us the signal because he is afraid that Mark is going to literally have a heart attack or stroke talking about
Well,
this
first
subject.
of all, I wouldn't compare it to interracial marriage because minors can't get married anyway. Second of all, comparing, gender affirming care with comparing puberty blockers with the right to puberty blockers with the civil rights movement is insane.
That's an absolutely insane take. Yeah, it shouldn't be taken seriously. If you do that, you should be laughed out of public conversation. It's silly. It's silly. There's only so much time in the day. I really look forward to the day when people that are that far outside of logic don't need to be taken seriously. Like I'm at the point now where, like, for instance, Joy Reid, ignore. Ignore. I don't care what she says. I don't want to comment on anything she says. She needs to be ignored out of existence and
Well,
those
she
like
made
her.
the comparison that denying gender affirming care for minors was what the Nazis would do, which is utter is literally
She
straight
she's
up.
a indoctrinated ideologue. She's simply
Well,
an idea warrior.
and it's also
She
and
lacks the ability to reason.
And it's also straight up projection because the Nazis were sterilizing and surgically mutilating children. So she's too much of a dumb fuck to know that the Nazis were actually doing that. Or
Psychology, man, is fucking weird. What a human being can convince themselves to believe because of whatever value they get from believing that is a fucking ocean of crazy shit. I love looking into this shit. I love reading books on this shit and watching videos on this shit. Psychology is insane. People can make themselves believe these things. Who's lying? Who's convincing themselves of something that's not true? It's crazy. And Joy Reid is in this world of crazy. It's kind of fascinating, but she's not someone to be taken seriously as a logical person. She needs to be ignored, I think. But anyways, Josh is going to throw a shoe at you if we don't wrap it up.
good night, Scott.
Good night, Mark.